Hi, I'm Donna Jordan from Jordan Fabrics. I was playing around over the weekend with some jelly roll strips, some 2.5-inch strips. And I came up with a new pattern. This is always fun, putting strips together and seeing what they'll make. So here's the block right here. When you put them together, you see this guy, you see the X's, and it made a very nice table runner. But I think it will really make an even nicer quilt. So let's go down and pick out some strips and see what the quilt looks like. Almost any jelly roll will look good in this pattern. We're going to need 64 strips, so we're going to need 2 of them. This would be very interesting. It's all solids. We've got lots of these solid color jelly rolls, but I think I want to use a batik. I really like these purple batiks in this guy here. This is from Hoffman. There's only 20 strips, so we're going to need 4 packages. The other thing we need is an accent fabric, and we want an accent fabric that has a lot of difference in color from these. So I want something really, really light to go with these guys. I have a lot of nice light batiks down here, and I think, let's see, all of these would work. So I'm going to put one of these on each. Now, there's a lot of contrast here, but this one is probably going to look like solid white, and I think that's a little too stark. Got a lot of dots here. Again, it will work. That's a little bit yellow. This one is actually the best choice. It's a little bit more muted, but there's some purple in it, so let's go with that one. Since all our strips are already cut here, all we have to cut is this background. So I need 32 strips cut into 2-inch pieces. So I'm going to cut this off the bolt and iron it up. I'm going to use a weight here to help hold my plastic ruler. And I'm going to cut 2-inch wide strips. Now I'm cutting 4 layers at a time. I'm comfortable cutting that many. You may want to cut a few more or a few less. Just do what is in your comfort zone. Now I'm going to open this up. All of these, with the possible exception of one of the strips, have quite a bit of difference in color between these and the accent here, which is what I want. Now, this one guy here is a little too close, and I don't need every strip. So I'm going to take that one out, and then we'll take the rest of these and the accents right over to the sewing machine. Now we're going to make some strip units. The whole quilt is made with one kind of strip unit. We have one of the colorful batiks, then we're going to do a 2-inch accent, then we're going to do another colorful batik. So we're going to make strip units with like this, and we're going to do that with all of our strips. So I'll show you how to do that. You're going to want to use a 1/4-inch seam, and when you sew them together, don't stretch the top or the bottom. Just simply lay them on top of each of themselves and stitch. So that's the key to having it flat, is don't stretch either one. Now finger press this seam towards the light one, to the right here. So finger press, I mean open this up and then draw your finger pad or your fingernail down the seam, and that will keep everything in place. Now we're going to take the next strip, and it doesn't really matter which strip you pick up. Don't worry about trying to get 2 darks, 2 lights. Just pick them up in order and stitch this one on. 1/4-inch seam, not stretching. Now finger press this seam again to the right, which is towards the dark this time. Now I need to make another one exactly like this. Now I have 2 strip units that are exactly the same. The seam allowances are all going to the right. All we're going to do is flip this one over, and we're going to stitch on both sides here. So I'm going to line them up and just stitch right down here. Again, don't stretch anything. Just use a careful 1/4 inch seam with no stretching. Now we're going to take our strips, which is now a strip tube, and we're going to iron it. It's already pretty flat because we finger pressed, but you're going to want to smooth it out. And then I like to put a straight edge or a long ruler here to make sure that I don't have it bowed. And then I'm going to iron it. Now, because we did our seam allowances all in the same direction, and then we flipped one, I've got these ones this way and these ones that way. So they're kind of nesting. This is really quite flat. So use a dry iron and then steam it. I'm going to use the strip tube ruler to cut my strip tube with. So I'm going to take this 7-inch line, which is right here, and I'm going to put that on the stitching line. So I'm not putting it on the cut edge. I'm putting the 7-inch line right on top of my stitching, and then I'm going to make 2 cuts. We'll move that aside and then make the second cut here. Now that it's cut, when you open this up, you've got a square. So I'm going to now turn the ruler around, same 7-inch line on the stitching, and make another cut. And I'm going to continue to do that the whole way down, and we're going to get 7 squares out of this tube. Now we want to iron these open so it looks like a square. So I like to have it flat on the table, peel it open, and then just press with your hands a little bit so that you don't stretch this and you don't distort it. You want it nice and flat. And you want to iron with parallel to these seams, because if you start ironing this way, this is bias and it can stretch. So just move your iron these 2 directions. Now we want to trim off these dog ears. I find it easiest to leave them in a stack and just take my scissors and trim right there, and then peel off another one, trim right there, and I'll do the whole stack like this. Then I'll turn it around and I'll start at the bottom again and I'll trim this one. So this is all we have to do for these blocks. So I'm going to use that same procedure that I did and make 16 strip tubes and cut them all up into squares like this. All the blocks are done. Now we're ready to lay the quilt out. So we're just going to alternate the way these are laying. So if this one is that way, we're going to want to turn this one that way. And pick them out from different parts of your stack so that you'll have lots of different fabrics in each row. Once we're done, we may trade some blocks around. So I'm going to make this 9 by 12 blocks. The quilt is all laid out on the table. So I've got 9 by 12 blocks. To keep these in order, when I stitch them into a quilt, I sometimes use these little stickers. So these are just little stickers that won't leave a residue, and I'm going to label that number 1. And I'm going to label this number 2, so that if I stitch my rows together, I know that I will lay them all back in the same order here. Now I'm going to take this first row and I'm just going to pick them up in order, and I'm not going to spin this stack around. I'm going to keep it right in front of me here till the whole row is picked up, and I'm going to walk straight over to the sewing machine. Keep this facing my stomach and set it right down here. This is the direction I need it placed in. So this is the first block is going to go there. The next block is going to go right next to it. I'm going to put these on my lap, but I'm not going to spin them. And I'm going to sew these 2 together. I'm going to have to match all of these seams, but it's pretty easy because they were cut all exactly the same length. So use a 1/4 inch seam, and again, try not to stretch anything. And when this is done, you can open it up and you can lightly smash this so that the seam allowance is going to the right. Don't pull it because you might stretch it, because this is all bias, but you can just press it down a little with your hands. Now take the next piece, flip it over, and do the exact same thing, and repeat till you've got the whole row done. Now we'll put this right back where it's supposed to go with the number 1 down at that end. Make sure that it still looks like you've got it stitched together correctly. You're going to have to wiggle it around a little because the seam allowances are in this now. But this just makes sure that you didn't turn any of your blocks. That looks good. Now we're going to pick up row number 2. We're going to sew it exactly the same way, but we're going to press all of the seam allowances to the left this time, which is the opposite direction of what we did here. And that way they will nest when we come to sew the rows together. Now to iron a quilt top like this that's all bias, you want to be a little bit careful to iron the direction of the grains, which means on the diagonals. You don't want to stretch it too much sideways because you can make it distort. So I always like to go with the grain of the fabric. So that's going to be on the diagonals. You can still get it really, really nice and flat. For the borders, I'm going to use the same accent fabric that we used in the patchwork here. I'm going to make a narrow border of that. And then I'm going to want to pick a colorful purple border. And almost any of these would work, but this one seems to catch the flavor of all of the strips that are in there, so we'll use that for an outside border. For the quilting pattern, I'm going to use this Spirals Galore. I'll make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. It's got big and little swirls, and that'll be really interesting on the quilt. For thread, I'm going to stick with the purples. I don't want to go too dark, so this nice lavender, if I reel off some, you can see more. It doesn't show up too much on the darks. It doesn't show up too much on the lights, so this will be perfect. Now that the quilt is done, you can really see the boxes in it. We're calling the pattern magic boxes. You can see those little boxes and the bigger boxes around it. The pattern works best with a really strong contrast between the accent and your strips. We have this as a free pattern, so you can click the link below, you can print it off, or you can read through it online. It was really, really easy to make. I know I say that about a lot of patterns, but this one really was. The quilting in those spirals, it just enhances the patchwork. It softens it a little because it's curved. You can't really see it from the back side. I used this wavy print on the back. It's another batik. So these are all Hoffman batiks here. It came out 68 by 88. So it's a generous lap size, a really nice size to cuddle up in. Thanks for watching our tutorial today on the Magic Boxes quilt. We hope you enjoyed it. Now, we're having another giveaway. We're going to give away this King's Crown quilt. These are all Ginny Buyer prints, and it's very easy to enter the giveaway. Just click the link below that says giveaway. Enter your email address and your name, and remember, we can ship this anywhere in the world, so good luck. Now, if you don't want to miss any of our new tutorials, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Happy quilting!